What if the person who hurt you the most wasn't a stranger, not an ex, not a co-worker? Not someone passing through your life, but someone who once held your hand when you were little, someone who shared your bed, your meals, your childhood. Someone who shares your blood. Sibling betrayal. It cuts differently, because from the moment we're young, we're told family is forever. That blood is thicker than water. That siblings are your built-in best friends, your safe place when the world goes dark. But what happens when that safe place becomes the very source of your pain? We don't talk about it much. Because when it comes to family, we're taught to stay silent, to keep the peace, to let it go, because they're your sibling. And so we smile through the tension. We swallow the hurt. We tell ourselves that silence is strength. But here's the truth. Some betrayals don't need a blade. They come through quiet words said behind your back, through cold eyes when no one else is looking, through polite nods and fake smiles covering resentment. And slowly, you start to doubt yourself. You wonder if you're just imagining it. You begin to believe maybe you deserve it. This video isn't about resentment. It's about clarity. It's about naming the pain you've been taught to ignore. It's about recognizing that you're not wrong for being tired. You're not selfish for wanting peace. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And sometimes the most powerful reaction isn't forgiveness, isn't confrontation. It's choosing to walk away, quietly, firmly, to protect your inner peace. Let's be clear, walking away doesn't mean you're bitter. It means you've stopped bleeding for people who keep handing you the knife. In this series, we're going to explore 7 kinds of sibling betrayals. Not petty mistakes, but deep recurring patterns that chip away at how you love, how you trust, how you live. These aren't small hurts, they're wounds that change you from the inside out. So let's begin. Part 1. Silent betrayal. The knife behind your back. Some wounds don't bleed. Some betrayals don't scream. They don't come with slamming doors or angry arguments. They come in whispers, in glances, in polite nods followed by quiet sabotage. And the cruelest ones? They come from the people you once trusted most. We grow up believing a simple truth, that siblings are our forever allies. That no matter how much the world misunderstands us, our brother or sister will always stand by our side. That even if we argue or drift apart, blood will always bring us back. But life doesn't always honor that script. Because sometimes the people who share your DNA choose to stand on the other side, quietly, strategically, with a smile that hides the wound they're preparing to open. Betrayal isn't always loud. Sometimes it happens behind closed doors, when you're not there to defend yourself. They smile at you at family dinners. They nod when you share your dreams, but once you walk away, they rewrite your story without your permission. They talk about your failures, not to help you grow, but to make you small. They twist your words. They tell half-truths that make others doubt your character. It's subtle, but you feel it. Your parents begin to look at you differently. They question your decisions, your worth, your values. And then one day, they repeat something you never said, a belief you don't hold, a version of you that only your sibling could have invented. Let me tell you a story. Chris was the eldest son in his family, quiet, responsible, always trying to earn his father's respect. He worked long hours, sent money home, did everything right on the outside, but his father never seemed impressed. There was always tension, distance, judgment. One day, Chris overheard a conversation between his father and younger brother. That's when the truth landed like a punch to the gut. The same brother who once called Chris his role model had been secretly telling their father that Chris was irresponsible with money, that he made poor business decisions, that he couldn't be trusted. And suddenly, everything made sense. Chris hadn't just been misunderstood, he'd been quietly dismantled by someone who shared his last name. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The tongue of a traitor is sharper than any dagger." Because words, especially whispered ones, can destroy a reputation. They can turn love into suspicion. They can strip you of your dignity without ever raising a hand. What makes this kind of betrayal so dangerous is that it hides behind the illusion of family. Because it's your sibling, you hesitate. You don't want to cause drama. You tell yourself, maybe they didn't mean it. And so you stay silent. You endure. You let them keep cutting you every time you turn your back. But here's the truth. Silence in the face of betrayal isn't nobility. Sometimes it's self-betrayal. You don't need to scream. You don't need to accuse, but you do need to draw the line. You have the right to say, "I will not let anyone twist the truth about me. I will not let family become a weapon against my peace." Some might ask, shouldn't we forgive? Yes, forgiveness is powerful. But forgiveness doesn't mean allowing someone to stay in your life. Forgiveness is about freeing your heart. Boundaries are about protecting your future. And the saddest part, sometimes you lose someone, even though they're still alive, still showing up to birthdays, still calling you brother or sis. But deep down, you can't look at them the same way anymore. Not because you hate them, but because, for once, you've chosen to love yourself enough to say, "I won't keep bleeding for someone who keeps handing me the knife." Family should never be a place where you lose your worth. You have the right to protect your name, your truth, and your dignity, even if it means stepping away. If someone smiles to your face but slanders you behind your back, they've already stepped out of the family bond in spirit. Because family isn't about shared blood, it's about mutual respect. And when that respect is gone, sometimes the most loving thing you can do is love them from afar. Part 2. Jealousy when you succeed, when your light makes them shrink. Have you ever noticed that the first person to look away when you achieve something big is someone from your own family? You share your joy, hoping to be celebrated, but instead you're met with a cold glance, a sarcastic comment, or a long, uncomfortable silence. Success is supposed to be something we celebrate, especially within a family. But in some relationships, it becomes a quiet battlefield. We're taught that family should be proud of us when we rise, that when one of us wins, we all win. But the truth, not everyone can handle your light, because sometimes your growth highlights the places they've stayed stuck. And instead of rising with you, they try to pull you back down. Envy inside a family rarely shows up loudly. It comes dressed in familiarity, packaged as concern, honesty, or just joking. You get a promotion? They say, "Must have been luck." You get a raise. They joke, "Don't forget who helped you get there." You buy a new home? They smirk, "Well, don't go bragging now." And slowly you start to feel guilty for doing well. Let me tell you a story. Amanda had worked hard for years, building her career from the ground up. No shortcuts, no handouts. Just grit and focus. Eventually, she was promoted to a senior leadership role. Her parents cried with pride. Her friends threw a celebration. Only one person didn't say much. Her older sister. She simply said with a flat smile, "Just don't let the money change who you are." Later, Amanda found out her sister had been telling relatives, "She's so different now. All she talks about is money. She's not like she used to be." Sometimes betrayal doesn't happen behind your back. It happens when they can't stand to see you in front. Here's a hard truth. Some people don't hate you. They just hate how they feel about themselves when they're around you. And instead of seeing you as inspiration, they see you as a mirror, reflecting back everything they've avoided. Stoic wisdom teaches this. Those who truly love you are not threatened by your light. They walk beside you in it. If someone can't celebrate your growth, their presence in your life is not growth, it's weight. You don't have to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. You don't have to apologize for dreaming big, for working hard, for finally rising after years of struggle. They weren't there for the late nights, the failures, the doubt, the silent tears. So why should you feel bad for finally standing tall? In psychology, there's a concept called triggered by someone else's light. It happens when someone's joy, success, or confidence reminds others of what they never dared to become. And instead of clapping for you, they resent you because your growth exposes their stagnation. But here's what you must remember: that's their wound, not yours. Maybe you've started holding back your good news. You've stopped sharing your wins. You dim your light so others won't feel small. But how long will you keep hiding who you are just to be less offensive to people who refuse to grow? If your light makes someone uncomfortable, let them step aside. You weren't born to make everyone feel okay. You were born to live fully. Stoicism doesn't ask us to cut off jealous people. It teaches us to see clearly, without emotion clouding the truth. You don't have to remove them from your life entirely, but you can adjust the distance. Lower your expectations, protect your energy, and most importantly, protect your joy. Let me say this again. You do not owe anyone your silence. You don't need to tone yourself down just to be more acceptable. Success is not something to whisper about. It's not something to hide like a guilty secret. It's the reward for everything they never saw you suffer through. If someone close to you can't celebrate with you, let them watch from the sidelines or from a distance. But don't let them drag you back into their shadow just because they're too afraid to step into the light. Final reflection. You don't have to make yourself small to be loved. Real love doesn't compete, doesn't. It supports, it uplifts, and if someone can't walk beside you on your path upward, keep walking anyway. Silently, boldly, without guilt. Because true light never needs permission to shine. Part 3. When the past becomes a cage, how siblings use old memories to control your present. There's something strange about the past. Even though it's behind us, if you're not careful, it can control you forever. And heartbreakingly, it's often the people closest to us, our own siblings, who hold the leash, not to help us remember, but to make sure we never forget, in the most disempowering way. All of us carry childhood memories. Moments of innocence, mistakes we made when we didn't know any better, secrets we shared in trust. Those memories should be sacred. They should be the glue that bonds a family, the proof that we've seen each other in our most vulnerable states and still choose love. But for some, the past becomes a weapon, a double-edged blade they draw when you dare to evolve, when you dare to grow, when you dare to become someone new. They bring up what you did wrong, not to help you heal, but to remind you, you owe them. They say things like, "Don't forget who covered for you back then. I could have told Mom everything, but I didn't. You wouldn't be where you are now without me." On the surface, it sounds like care. But dig deeper, and you'll find quiet control wrapped in family sentiment. You start to feel confused. You're not sure if it's a threat or affection. You feel like maybe you should be grateful, that you're somehow indebted to them for not exposing your past. And that guilt, it begins to shape your choices. You hesitate to say no. You hesitate to grow. You hesitate to set boundaries because they know who you used to be. Let me share a story. David had a tough childhood. He struggled financially, emotionally, mentally. His older brother was there through it all. At the time they were close, he felt supported. Years later, David rebuilt himself. He worked hard, built a thriving career in finance. But his brother couldn't seem to let go of who David used to be. Every time David hesitated to give him money, his brother would say things like, "Don't forget who helped you when you had nothing. Remember who kept your debt a secret." David realized something painful. He wasn't being seen for who he is now. He was being held hostage by a version of himself he had long outgrown. The Stoic philosophers remind us, no man is the same as he was yesterday. We evolve, we grow. We have the right to be treated based on who we've become, not who we once were. If someone constantly uses your past to guilt you into compliance, they're not honoring your journey. They're manipulating it. Love doesn't weaponize old stories. Love sees your evolution and celebrates it. Here's the real danger. When you're chained to your past, you start playing small. You walk quietly. You live cautiously, afraid that any step forward might seem like betrayal. You turn down opportunities because you're scared to look ungrateful. You suppress your voice so you won't seem arrogant. And over time, you're not really living. You're performing, a version of yourself that others are more comfortable with. But the truth is, you don't owe anyone your progress just because you made mistakes in the past. No one gets to use their forgiveness as leverage. No one gets to chain you to a version of yourself they refuse to let go of. Ask yourself, are you holding on to a relationship because you feel guilty? Are you dimming your light to keep someone else's memory of you intact? If the answer is yes, you might be trapped in a story that should have ended long ago. Real forgiveness isn't supposed to hold you back, it's supposed to free you. And if someone keeps dragging you into old guilt, it's not love. It's fear, and fear has no place in relationships that are meant to uplift you. If they can't see who you are now, let them hold on to the old version. You don't need to argue, you don't need to defend, just keep walking into the life you've earned. Final reflection. You have the right to be reborn, to outgrow the labels they placed on you, to live fully in the present without asking permission from the past. Anyone who uses what you once did to manipulate who you are now isn't trying to love you, they're trying to contain you. You don't have to stay loyal to people who won't let you evolve. Keep growing, keep moving, let the past stay where it belongs, behind you. Part 4. Public humiliation. When humor hides a hidden knife. Not all betrayals happen in the shadows. Some unfold right in front of your eyes, in broad daylight, with a smile on their face and laughter in the background. Not your laughter, theirs. And you're the punchline. Some people don't stab you in the back. They stab you right in front of everyone and expect you to pretend it didn't hurt. They take something personal, something you once shared in confidence, a mistake, a moment of weakness, a vulnerable confession, and turn it into a joke right in front of friends. Right at the family dinner table, right where you're trapped because defending yourself will make you seem too sensitive. They say things like, "Relax, it's just a joke. You're usually funny. Why so serious now? Come on, it's old news. Don't be dramatic." But deep down, you know the truth. It's not a joke. It's betrayal. Maybe you felt that before. That split-second pause when someone jokes about the time you broke down after a breakup, when you failed miserably, when you felt lost and hopeless. And suddenly it's the entertainment of the evening. Everyone laughs. You force a chuckle, but inside, something twists. You feel exposed. Unprotected, like your trust was sold for applause. Let me tell you a story. Laura went through a painful breakup. She confided in her younger brother during one of her lowest points. She cried. She begged someone to stay. She shared moments she never told anyone else. She trusted him. But during a family dinner, when Laura brought her new boyfriend, her brother blurted out across the table, "Good thing she found someone new. Otherwise, she'd still be crying and calling her ex like last time." Laughter erupted. Laura didn't laugh. Her face flushed. Her heart raced. She didn't know what to say, because if she reacted, she'd be the dramatic one. Later, when she pulled her brother aside, he shrugged and smiled. "Geez, chill out. Everyone has weak moments. It's in the past." And that's the danger of this kind of betrayal. It doesn't come with clear malice. It wears the mask of humor. And when you call it out, you become the problem. But here's the thing. There's nothing funny about someone using your pain to entertain others. There's nothing light-hearted about turning your struggles into a show. And there's nothing family about making someone feel small in front of others. As Epictetus once said, "The man who laughs at your pain does not deserve a place in your life." Because public humiliation doesn't just sting in the moment. It cracks the foundation of trust. It tells others it's okay to mock you. It makes you think twice before opening up again. And eventually, you become quieter, more guarded, less yourself. True family protects your softness. They don't perform it. True siblings lift you when you're down. They don't drag you into the spotlight when you can't defend yourself. You have the right to set boundaries. You have the right to say, "I'm not okay with that story being shared. That moment wasn't funny to me. I'm not your dinner table comedy material." And if they don't understand that, it's not your fault. It's their lack of emotional maturity disguised as playfulness. You don't have to keep showing up to tables that make you feel small. You don't have to stay in relationships where you're forced to laugh just to avoid being targeted. You can forgive, but still create distance. You can love, but from a place where your dignity is preserved, because family isn't a license to humiliate. And blood ties are not a permission slip to embarrass you in public. Final thought. You deserve respect, even in your weakest moments. You deserve protection, even when you've made mistakes. You deserve emotional safety, even around your own relatives. If someone cannot see that trust is sacred, they don't deserve to hold it. And if they turn your memories into weapons, you have the right to walk away, quietly, but with power. Choose relationships where you don't have to shrink to fit in. Choose people who safeguard your story, not auction it off for attention. Because sometimes the worst betrayal is not being stabbed in the back, but being laughed at by someone you once called family. Part 5. When they disappear. Right when you need them most. There's a kind of pain that makes no sound. No screaming, no drama, no blood. Just absence. The person you thought would be there wasn't, and that hollow silence. It cuts the deepest. We all have moments when life drags us to the floor, a breakup you never saw coming. A phone call in the middle of the night with bad news from the hospital. A season of life where you wake up lost, not knowing who you are or why you're even trying. In those moments, you don't need much. You don't need someone to fix everything. You don't need grand speeches or dramatic gestures. You just need them to show up. A single message, a quick call, a look that says, "I see you," even when you can't speak. But what you get is nothing. You scroll through your contacts. Their name is still there. You remember growing up together, climbing trees, hiding snacks from your parents, sharing the last pack of noodles. You told yourself, "They're my brother, my sister. If I fall, they'll catch me," but they don't. You're in a hospital bed, staring at the ceiling. No calls, no texts. No footsteps in the hallway. And the worst part isn't what you're going through. It's realizing that the person you hoped for the most is the one who stayed silent. People will say, maybe they're busy. Maybe they didn't know what to say. Don't take it personally, but only you know. They once promised to be there. They were the ones you trusted, the family you thought would never walk away, and their absence says more than any words could. Let me tell you about Jack. He was in a serious traffic accident. Friends came. His girlfriend came. Even co-workers showed up. But one person didn't. His older sister. And it wasn't like she didn't know. Jack called her while still shaken, voice trembling, struggling to speak. She said, "Oh, I'll see if I can make it." I'm super busy lately. Then nothing, no visit, no message. Not even a, how are you? Weeks later, after he left the hospital, she finally texted, "Hey, feeling better? Come by for dinner this weekend?" Jack read that text 3 times. And all he felt was emptiness, not anger, just the quiet, aching knowledge that something had died inside him. The Stoics taught this: we can't control the actions of others, only our response to them. And how you respond to someone's absence defines the boundary of your self-worth. You can choose, keep chasing, keep hoping for crumbs of affection they give only when convenient. Or accept the truth. Not everyone who shares your blood is truly your home. Presence is a form of love. It's not fancy, but showing up when it truly matters is one of the most powerful acts of all. On the other hand, not showing up when you're needed most, that's a quiet betrayal with brutal consequences. It doesn't destroy you all at once. It erodes you slowly, eats away at your trust, makes you question if anyone is really there when things fall apart. You have the right to feel disappointed, but you also have the right to redefine your limits. From now on, you don't have to keep waiting for people who only remember you when they need something. A real connection isn't measured by bloodlines, it's measured by presence. Don't let "but they're my sibling" become an excuse for pain you never deserved, because family, without responsibility, without care, is just a title. Nothing more. If you've ever been abandoned at your lowest, know this: you are not alone. And here's the beautiful part: you still get to choose. Choose who walks with you. Choose relationships built on respect, not convenience. Choose peace over waiting in vain. Final reflection. Sometimes the deepest loss isn't a breakup. It's realizing that the person you trusted most was never really there. And when that realization comes, you don't need revenge. You don't even need words. Just walk away in silence and make room for someone who shows up. Part 6. They constantly undermine your efforts and worth. There's a kind of wound that doesn't come from harsh words or betrayal. It comes from silence, from the quiet dismissal of your growth by the very people who were once there when you were broken. And sometimes they don't even disappear. They stay close, just to minimize you. You tell them you got promoted. They say, "Must be because the boss likes you, not because you're good." You talk about the certification course you're taking, the late nights, the weekends sacrificed. They reply, "Probably just for show. Everyone's doing that now." Every step you take forward, unacknowledged. Every effort you put in, shrugged off. And slowly you start to wonder, am I overestimating my own worth? We often think betrayal is loud. It's lies, gossip, or abandonment. But there's a quieter form, more subtle, more toxic. When the people close to you deny your growth because your growth makes them feel small. They could be your siblings, cousins, childhood friends, those who once held your hand when you were down. But now, when you rise, when you start walking your own path with confidence, they feel threatened. They sense a loss of control. And their response, undermining you, not with attacks, not with drama, but with small dismissive jabs like, "Still broke though, aren't you? Nothing special. Anyone could have done that. Success? You just got lucky." Let me tell you about Tim. The youngest of 3, Tim never quite fit the mold. His older brothers were a doctor and an engineer. He was a freelance designer, teaching himself Photoshop and Illustrator in his tiny bedroom. For 3 years, he built his portfolio in silence, until one day he landed a major project with a national coffee chain, his first big contract worth nearly $12,000. Excited, Tim shared the news over dinner. "They picked my design from over 30 submissions," his eldest brother scoffed. "Probably just went with the cheapest one." That one comment, dismissive, cold, crushed what took years to build. Tim's pride, his confidence, and in that moment, he realized, not everyone in your family wants to see you rise. People who knew you at your lowest often struggle to accept your transformation because it forces them to confront the truth. They've been standing still, and the easiest way to avoid facing that, make you feel like you haven't moved either. The Stoics taught, a wise man seeks validation not from others, but from the cultivated strength within. You don't need to prove yourself, because if someone refuses to see your worth, no amount of effort will ever change their mind. Maybe you've laughed off the subtle digs, maybe you've told yourself, they're just joking. But if the pattern continues, if every time you rise, they push you back down, then it's time to set a boundary. You have the right to distance yourself from anyone who makes you doubt your own value. Success isn't for flaunting, but your efforts deserve respect. Not everyone needs to understand your journey, but those who love you will never mock it. So ask yourself, who constantly minimizes your growth, no matter how hard you work? Are they truly your family, or just people using emotional ties to stay in control? You owe no one an explanation for your achievements. You only owe yourself a life where you're free to evolve without being guilted into shrinking. And if someone quietly undermines you, smile. Keep moving forward, because light doesn't need to shout, it shines on its own. Part 7. They pretend nothing ever happened. Have you ever felt this? After a heated argument, after a deep emotional wound, after words that kept you up all night, they suddenly return, smiling, acting normal. No apology, no acknowledgement, just a silence that feels deliberate. And you stand there, stunned, asking yourself, am I crazy, or did it really happen? This is one of the most subtle forms of betrayal, not because it's loud, but because it tries to erase reality and makes you question your own memory. When someone hurts you, then acts like they didn't. When they cause a rift, then return with a casual smile. They're not just refusing responsibility, they're trying to steal the truth itself. This is what silent gaslighting looks like. They don't have to manipulate you with words, they just ignore the pain you felt. That alone is enough to make you second-guess your own emotions. Am I being too sensitive? Maybe I should just let it go. Maybe it wasn't a big deal. I once knew a woman named Huang. She had an older sister, 6 years older, successful but cold and controlling. One day, at a family gathering, her sister casually mentioned Huang's past relationship in front of her boyfriend. Smirking, Huang froze. It was something she had only confided to her sister in private. She stopped speaking to her after that. She expected an apology, a message, anything. But a week later, her sister called. Hey, you free this weekend? Want to go shopping? No mention of what happened, no apology. Just like nothing ever occurred. This kind of behavior, pretending it never happened, is a deep form of denial. It strips you of the right to feel pain, to be angry, to ask for justice. It forces you to make peace with yourself while the wound is still bleeding. In mature relationships, forgiveness doesn't mean erasing your memory. It doesn't mean silently letting it slide. Forgiveness only matters when there's acknowledgement. But when someone keeps pretending nothing happened, treating your hurt like a small joke, that's not ignorance. That's intentional manipulation. You have every right to refuse the role in their play. You can say, I'm not ready to act like everything is okay. I need you to understand that what happened was real and it hurt. Without acknowledgement, we can't move forward. You are not overly sensitive. You are simply someone who honors your emotions. The Stoics never taught us to run from our feelings. They taught us to see them clearly and not let others distort our truth, because even painful truth deserves to exist. And if someone tries to erase it, step back, not out of anger, but but because you choose to protect your mental well-being. People who hurt you and then act like nothing happened aren't trying to heal the bond. They're trying to maintain control through silence. Truth doesn't need to scream, but it does need to be acknowledged. And you deserve a relationship where your emotions are not treated like emotional garbage. If you're enduring this from someone close, ask yourself, do they truly not remember? Or are they just avoiding it? Is this relationship healing you or repeating the hurt? Because sometimes the deepest pain isn't that the apology never came. It's that they act like there was never anything to apologize for. Part 8. When they try to control you with silence. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from peace. It comes from control. When someone is upset with you, they don't always need to shout. They don't need to argue. All they have to do is go silent. No texts, no eye contact, no responses. No presence. And somehow, that absence speaks louder than 1,000 words. Family members, siblings especially, are often the ones who wield this tactic best. They know your emotional weak spots. They know you crave connection, closeness, harmony, and they use that knowledge not to comfort you, but to control you. Silence becomes punishment. They don't have to say you're wrong, you just start to feel it. You begin to question yourself. You wonder what you did wrong. You feel guilty without being told why. You apologize, even when you're not sure what for. And when they finally break the silence, when they forgive you, you feel relief. But you've also given away a piece of yourself. I once spoke with a man named James. He had a younger brother, someone he'd been close with since childhood. But as adults, something shifted. One day, James refused to lend money. He was struggling financially. His brother didn't argue. He just vanished. A month passed, then 2, then 6. No calls, no texts, not even a New Year's greeting. James felt like he'd committed a crime. He reached out, tried to explain, to reconnect. Silence. And when his brother finally replied, he simply said, "Hey, how have you been?" Like nothing ever happened. Silence isn't always serenity. Sometimes it's a weapon, a tool to bend your emotions, to force your submission. And when family uses it not to calm tension, but to punish, it's not love, it's manipulation. The Stoics taught us to be still, but never to use silence to avoid responsibility or control others. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Let your silence come from integrity, not from the desire to dominate." So what can you do when silence is used as a leash? First, don't let that silence define your worth. You are not less than because someone chooses to ignore you. Your feelings are valid even when they go unacknowledged. Second, draw clear boundaries. You can say, "I respect your space, but if silence is used as punishment, I can't accept that. If something's bothering you, I'm here to listen, but I can't keep guessing." And third, learn to withstand the discomfort of their absence. It hurts. Yes, but if someone only stays in your life by manipulating you with silence, then their absence may be the clearest presence of truth. Someone who truly cares will want to connect, not control. They'll want to talk, not punish. They'll want to understand you, not make you tiptoe in fear of rejection. If every disagreement ends in cold silence, ask yourself, is this still a relationship or a silent power play? Am I shrinking myself just to be accepted? And if I go silent too, am I protecting myself or just continuing a toxic cycle? Silence is not your enemy. But silence with intention to control is betrayal. You have the right to speak. You have the right to walk away. You have the right to protect your peace, even if it means losing the illusion of closeness, because sometimes what's not said hurts more than what is. Part 9. when they exploit your kindness for their own gain. Kindness is a gift. But in the wrong hands, it can become a trap. Some people don't want you to change, not because they love who you are, but because your goodness benefits them. You're always willing to help. You say yes when they need something. You forgive easily. You put their needs above your own. And over time, they start treating that as a silent entitlement. Have you ever felt this? You help a sibling over and over. You're the one who listens when they're down, lends them money when they're broke, changes your plans just to be there for them. But when you need them, a call, a word of comfort, a simple presence, you're met with silence, excuses, or worse, blame. The question isn't whether you're kind, it's whether your kindness is being used against you. And sometimes the people who do this best are family. I once knew a woman named Alice. She was the eldest of 3. Their parents passed away early, so she became both sister and mother to her siblings. Alice started working young. She sent money home, paid for school, paid for weddings, fixed the house, covered hospital bills. She never complained. But when she got sick and needed someone to take her to the hospital, neither of her siblings showed up. One was busy. The other didn't answer the phone. Alice told the story with a faint smile, but something in her eyes had shattered. Kindness is not an obligation, and it should never be something people assume you'll always give. If someone only values you when it serves their interest, that's not family. That's emotional commerce disguised as connection. The Stoics taught, nothing is more precious than your own virtue, and kindness is a form of virtue, but it must be guided by wisdom. Because kindness without boundaries becomes a weapon turned inward. You have the right to say no, not because you're heartless, but because you respect yourself. You have the right to help, but not at the cost of your own well-being. You have the right to withdraw your kindness when it is met with expectation instead of gratitude. Ask yourself, am I helping because I want to, or because I'm afraid they'll be upset? If I stop helping, does this relationship still exist? Do they only appreciate me when I'm useful? Family is not a place where you have to prove your worth through suffering. It should be where your kindness is met with reciprocity, not exploitation. If someone only remembers you when they need something and disappears when you're in need, they're not acting as family. They're acting as someone using the label of family to drain you. You deserve to be loved for who you are. Not because you're easy to ask, not because you always say yes, not because you sacrifice, but because you are a whole human being with value, emotions, and limits. So if someone in your family calls you such a good person, but disappears the moment you need support, remember, that's not a compliment, it's a setup where you're the unpaid servant. Kindness is meant to build connection, not to be a leash. You have every right to save your kindness. For those who recognize its worth, you have every right to walk away from the ones who only know how to take. Forgiveness is noble, but not for every betrayal. We are taught that family is forever, that blood is thicker than water, that we should be kind, forgiving, because they're still your siblings. But here's the truth. Not everyone born into the same family deserves a place in your future. Some of the people we call family are the very ones who hurt us the deepest. Not with fists, but with silence when we needed them most. Not with knives, but with repeated belittling, comparisons, and quiet sabotage over the years. Forgiveness is a virtue. But forgiveness doesn't mean permission for them to keep crossing your boundaries. It doesn't mean you have to maintain a toxic relationship just because it's labeled family. A sibling who betrayed you might change, but that change must come from them, not from your endless tolerance. Grown-ups don't measure closeness by shared DNA, but by the quality and kindness in how someone treats you. A relationship even between siblings, without respect, love, or honesty, is just another slow-burning emotional trap. If you've ever asked yourself, am I wrong for cutting ties with my own family? Does this make me selfish, heartless, or ungrateful? Let me tell you, choosing peace is not selfish. Setting boundaries with toxic family isn't a lack of love, it's self-respect in its purest form. You don't need to create a scene, you don't need to argue, scream, or prove anything, just quietly withdraw your energy and invest it where it's valued. Let them live how they choose, but you live in a way that honors your own worth. If just thinking about your family brings you pain, that's not your fault. It means you're sensitive enough to recognize not every family is your safe space. Sometimes true family isn't where you were born, but where you are truly seen, valued, and healed. If you've ever experienced silent betrayals from a sibling or family member, drop your story in the comments. Not just to release the burden, but to help someone out there feel a little less alone. And if you want to keep walking this path of healing, of reclaiming your strength and rediscovering your worth, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Future videos will go even deeper into the things we often carry in silence. Thank you for staying with me until the end. You deserve love, not because you suffer or sacrifice, but because you are you.